Pastor, do you think that some people are looking or seeking God's intervention as a sign that he has got this when they look at these type of events?
Yeah. Well, certainly some people do. I mean, when they see things like this happen and they see, and again, I keep using the word convergence, the convergence of things. They understand the prophetic times we're living in, and it speaks to the fact that God is in control. He's on his throne. Because, Michael, here's the thing. The Bible, the Word of God, the Bible, is the only, and I'm going to use the word religious just for the sake of comparing other faith systems, but it's the only religious book in the world that speaks of the things I'm getting ready to say, astounding things that we're the only generation in the history of the world to see happen. And these things that I'm going to share with you have all happened within the last 50, 60 years, and they're closing in down to these last few years and few months. And we're the only generation in the world to see them happen, and there's only one book in the world that says that these things would happen, either specifically or very nearly specifically, and they would happen at what the Bible calls the last days. So yes, when you see these things unfold, and there they are in the Scriptures, written 2,000 years ago, and some of them more than that, and we are living these things, then those of us of faith, we see that and we say, wow, I mean, look at the times we're living in. God has got this. He's in control. His Word says it, and now we're watching it unfold. May I give you some examples?
Oh, please.
Okay, here we go. And I want your audience to consider these things. So, first of all, in 1948, we have Israel coming back to the land. Well, many of your listeners, that are less than 67 years old, are saying, well, but Israel's always been around. No, it hasn't. It has. For 2,500 years, there was no Israel. And only in less than 70 years ago, less than a generation ago, Michael, Israel is rebirthed in a single day. And the Scripture said that was going to happen, and it said it was going to happen in the last days. So for 2,500 years, you've got this prophecy lying there in the Scriptures. Theologians are debating it for 2,500 years. What does this mean? When's it going to happen? Is that only when Jesus comes back, or is that literally going to happen before he returns? And boom, it happens in our lifetime. We're the only generation. But wait. That's just when it started. And then, just a couple decades later, Israel recaptures Jerusalem. Now Jerusalem is in play, which ties right into end-time prophecies. Boom. Then Ezekiel 38, written 2,600 years ago, declares, and I'm going to paraphrase, but this is what it says. When the returned Israel is back in the land in the last days, there will be a specific coalition of nations that begin to align themselves to come against Israel for the purpose of destroying her. And those nations are listed by name, Michael, in the Scriptures. They're listed by the old tribal names of Genesis 10, but they correlate to modern-day nations, and they correlate to the modern-day nations of Iran, Russia, Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Egypt, Libya, the Middle East. And it says that these nations will begin to form alliances, and that things will begin to rumble in the Middle East and among these nations, and the alliances will be formed for the purpose of attacking Israel and Jerusalem, for the purpose of destroying the Jews and destroying this returned Israel. Well, Michael, that's the center of the geopolitical discussions being held right now. And has been, for the last decade, but particularly in the last couple of years. Now we have Iran and Russia and nuclear deals, and they're speaking in their bully pulpits before the world almost every day. We want to destroy Israel. We want to destroy the Jews. We want to destroy. And then we see this rise of Islam, the rise of ISIS, and the major centers of their rising is where? On the Euphrates River. And students of the Bible know that there are several profound prophecies that declare in the very last days, before the return of the Lord, and some say, before the rapture, after the rapture. I'm not going to get into that argument, but the bottom line is, the Scriptures say that in the very last days, there will be a buildup of troops on the Euphrates River, and a mighty war, a World War III scenario will eventually break out in that area. And the Euphrates River begins, of all places, in the mountains of northern Turkey, and runs through Syria and through Iraq and empties into the Persian Gulf. And that is the center of ISIS activity and hotbed right now, the geopolitical center of the world. Everybody's focused on that. And again, as I said, now we have Iran and Russia named in the Ezekiel 36 prophecy as forming an alliance. And it's all centered around nuclear armament. And then we've got, of course, the whole deal with the United States and that. And now we've got the United States turning its back on Israel in so many ways. All of that is happening. In the midst of all of that, we have the Pope coming to the United States, addressing Congress on Yom Kippur, addressing the White House, coming to the White House to see Obama on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, the highest holy day of the Jewish feast. This is the same Pope that has declared that Palestine needs to be a nation. In fact, he's recognizing Palestine before there ever is a Palestine, which is decimating to Israel because it's going to require that Israel give up land and security. The same Pope that's calling his words, Michael, for a global governance system to deal with global warming. He's literally calling for a one-world government to deal with global warming. He'll soon be in the United Nations calling for these things. The Vatican has some of the tightest border controls of any nation state in the world, yet today he stood in Congress and chastised us, basically telling us we need to relax our border controls. I mean, the world is upside down. Israel is in the land. The nations are lining themselves against her. Jerusalem has been recaptured. Iran and Russia are in contract with each other. Nuclear armament. ISIS has broken out on the Euphrates River. The Pope is in the White House on Yom Kippur. I mean, I could continue going, but these are things that we know. I'm not speculating on any of this. The Scriptures speak of these kinds of things, and either directly or indirectly, and only the Bible does. No other religious writing in the world would dare to claim that these things would happen and that they would converge together in a particular period of time, and it would all be signs of the last days. On top of all of that, Jesus says in Luke 17, he says, let me tell you, just before the coming of the Son of Man, it'll be just like it was in the days of Noah. And then he said, it'll be just like it was in the days of Lot, eating and drinking and giving in marriage, right up to the day that the wrath of God was poured out. He said, it'll be just like this. And you know what, Michael? That's what you and I began this show with, talking about this spirit, this spiritual feeling, this spiritual smell that's in the air all over the world. People understand. We've got the Sodom and Gomorrah spirit sweeping the world now. We've got this days of Noah spirit. I mean, all of this upside downness, but people don't know the Lord, don't see it. They're eating and drinking and giving in marriage. They don't have a clue. There's a boat being built in our backyard, so to speak, in Noah's backyard, and they didn't have a clue until the judgment came. And so we're the only generation in the history of the world to see Israel back, the nations aligning, Jerusalem back, the Euphrates River filled with violence and vileness against Israel and against Christians. We're watching all of that happen before our eyes as the Pope comes to America, stands in the UN, stands in the White House on Yom Kippur, declaring that Palestine needs to be a state and that we need a one-world order, we need a one-world government. And then on top of all of this, Michael, we're the first and only generation the world has ever seen to have the technologies of information, communication, and transportation that the Bible speaks of in the last days. You know, the whole world will see him. The whole world will take a mark. The whole world will not be able to buy or sell or eat, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we now have the technologies for all of those things to come to pass. So these are extremely prophetic times in which we're living. One of the things I'm trying to do is just to wake up the church, to wake up Christians and say, look, it's time. It's time to be alive. It's time to be the salt. It's time to be the light. It's time to engage the world around us with the gospel and with truth and with light. As it gets darker and darker and darker in the world, spiritually speaking, our job is to turn up the light, Michael. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, and it's a perfect segue to my next question.